Hi, I'm Ross Barry and you're watching Friday 5 at 5, June the 12th. Last weekend, the Black Lives Matter protest movement came to Wyong. Around 400 local people rallied outside Wyong Courthouse and heard speakers talk about racism and high Indigenous incarceration rates in Australia. Executive Director of the Barang Regional Alliance, Vicky Parry, said Indigenous people were still fighting for the 432 people who've died in custody since 1991. The event, however, was conducted peacefully and was marked by a show of support from local coast police who took to one knee in solidarity with the protesters. The recent storms and high tides that caused the APL England to lose some 50 containers overboard several weeks ago has also caused some major erosion of local beaches. This footage shows the erosion at North Entrance Beach, and similar scenes were reported in Kilcare, Umina and Max, as well as several northern beaches. It reignited the debate about the rights of beachside homeowners to shore up their properties against rising ocean levels and who should bear the costs. Council this week passed a motion to work with local beachside residents to help them defend properties. Let's go now to David Abrahams.
Thanks, Ross. This week, the first sitting of the new Central Coast Local Planning Panel happened. The LPP effectively takes planning powers away from the council and puts it into the hands of a panel appointed by the Minister of Planning, Rob Stokes. The LPP's stated intentions are to increase transparency and efficiency in the planning system. We talked about that to Deputy Mayor Jane Smith.
So I think it's important to be very clear that Council has opposed it, and we really do see that this is the state government taking planning powers away from our community essentially, and our Council as representing our community. So Council has maintained strong opposition to it. We did have the opportunity to appoint the community panel members, and so we did that a couple of meetings ago. Part of that resolution was that we have given it a time frame of 14 months. So that is a case of seeing how the next 12 months goes, monitoring how the planning panel does function, and then providing a report to the Minister, which is something that Council does need to do, but also a report to Council to really evaluate how this reflects on what our community wants.
And on Monday, the Queen's Birthday Honours List was released, with 7 Central Coast residents receiving awards for services to the community. Among the many remarkable recipients this year was former New South Wales Minister John Della Bosca. I spoke with John earlier today.
It's a bit of it's a surprise, and I suppose after you get over the initial reaction, you start thinking about all the people that made a contribution to the work that has been credited to you, and you sort of I think of it as something for all those people as well as for me. Well, I think the Every Australian Counts campaign, which is the campaign that really gave rise to the public expectation and the political desire for a national disability insurance scheme. And that really, although it's not perfect and we're now living with that scheme as something that's a reality in place, and there's some shortcomings and issues that need to be dealt with, what we do know is that it's 100%, maybe 200% better than the system it replaced.
And a full rundown of all the local Queen's Birthday Honours recipients is available in this week's Coast Community News and Coast Community Chronicle, or of course online at our website. To Council now, and this week's meeting had a long and arduous agenda. One item was the new commuter car park recommended by staff to be built behind Central Coast Stadium. As we reported last week, the $30 million facility, funded by federal, state and local sources, promises to ease the growing parking problems in and around the Gosford CBD. But the Commuters Association has challenged the proposal, saying the funding was meant specifically to address car parking issues and not for aspirations of council, including, apparently, a conference venue. Others have also questioned the location and design of the facility, as well as the loss of the open grass area often used by families on game day. The final decision was deferred by councillors to await more feedback from locals and staff. Council did, however, endorse the release of the long-awaited Central Coast Economic Development Strategy. something that it hopes will drive investment and employment in the region. The strategy is now on public exhibition on the Council's website, and we'll have more to report about this in coming weeks. And finally, Ross, the Central Coast was treat to another amazing operatic performance by Coast Opera Australia. Disney to Diva was called, led by acclaimed soprano Angela Brewer. The performance also featured celebrated tenor Giotani Bonsante and baritone Andrew Jones, and guest performer 12-year-old Maggie Smith. Check this out.
Of people going by, I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" They're really saying, "I love you." I see babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Australian seabird rescue Central Coast this week released Dotty the Sea Turtle back into the ocean at Cabbage Tree Bay. Dotty has been in care for over 9 months after being found with a cracked shell and collapsed lung. In sport, it was Umina Surf Lifesaving Club's Night of Nights last weekend at the region's annual Awards of Excellence. The club took out 7 awards, including the coveted Club of the Year award. And for a full rundown of all the awards, please see our story published this week on the website. And in rugby league, the second of a 3-game NRL blockbuster weekend kicks off shortly at Central Coast Stadium, when the Central Coast New Zealand Warriors take on the North Queensland Cowboys.
The course of this week, I think preparation, has been really good this week. We had a really good training run today. Pretty, wet conditions here in Terrigal. The boys got through that really well. Really good energy. So, finish it off with a captain's run tomorrow. But I think certainly the more time we spend together, the more connection that will flow from that.
Last night, the Manly Sea Eagles staged a remarkable comeback from 18-0 down at half-time to defeat Brisbane 20-18. And we can only imagine what Coach Des Hasler might have said or done in the sheds at half-time to spark that kind of turnaround. Issue number 246 of the Coast Community News hit the street today, and the Coast Community Chronicle, formerly known as the Wyong Regional Chronicle, which serves the north of the coast and is also now out weekly, also hit the stands on Wednesday. And all the stories and more are available online on our website. Now, there's been some suggestion that many of you may have preferred the news being read last week by our guest presenter, Jacinta Coonahan, to the current anchor. As unlikely as that is, if it is the case, please write in to the editor at centralcoastnews.net and tell us. Or if you preferred our previous news reader, Georgia Lieneman, there is also a new Bring Georgia Back movement that you can sign up to. And as COVID-19 restrictions are eased around the coast this week, we leave you today with a little ode to the coronavirus written and produced by locals. See you next week.
I'm demanding your compliance. Please don't tell me you have won. No, I need to thrive forever, so I'm nasty and obscene. You've ended your endeavour with a clever new vaccine. I need you. Still need you. I want you. Still want you. I'm waiting here for you. No, I don't want your injection. I'm not a common flu, but a glorious infection. Was the killer queen corona? Not anymore, love. The killer queen corona. Oh, get over yourself. I was the killer queen and I was crowned. For what went around, my darlings, came around.